With the 2025 NFL draft wrapping up, we've seen some pretty interesting storylines. The Shedeur Sanders falling out of the first round, even out of the second round. That's been really interesting. And now that this draft is wrapping up, it's time to take a look at the 2026 prospects. This is a way too early look, and it's going to be fun. There's a lot of big names. The quarterback position will be one that everyone focuses on, but there are plenty of other prospects that we need to pay attention to. We will go position by position and look at some of the top position players that will be competing for a spot to be taken in the first round next year. We'll talk about some sleeper picks as well and see who you need to watch in 2026. Before we do that, though, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way in helping this channel grow. We have a lot of exciting things coming up. NFL Draft isn't our primary focus. It's pretty much on the college side of things, but still plenty of college content coming out. So let's dive in to these 2026 prospects. We'll start with the quarterback position. Now, the quarterback position is always the one that we talk about the most, and there are plenty of big names to consider in 2026. The big names that people are going to be talking about, Garrett Nussmeier is a big one. We see the arm talent with him. The biggest name, though, is Arch Manning. Everybody's going to be talking about Arch Manning and what that Manning name can do for whatever franchise is looking to draft him. It looks like this year maybe the Browns are waiting for a 2026 quarterback. Arch Manning could be one of those guys. Nussmeier and Drew Aller are two of the more intriguing prospects in terms of arm talent. They have big arms. They have good frames that can make them very intriguing for this draft as well. Cade Klubnik kind of falls in that conversation too. Had a pretty decent season in 2024. Lenore Sellers is an interesting one. You'd like to see him improve a little bit more as a passer, but this is a guy that if he can figure that out, the run game is phenomenal already, and he is going to be a very, very explosive player if he can put that all together. Carson Beck looking to redeem himself at Miami. Rocco Becht actually is the sleeper pick here in terms of my opinion, and this is a guy who maybe doesn't have the biggest size. Maybe that's going to be a concern for him, but he is a good decision maker. He knows where to put the ball. He will see what he can do. You saw Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins in the NFL draft this year, so his top two targets are gone. We'll see what he can do with new top targets like Chase Sewell, Xavier Townsend. We'll see what happens there, but Rocco Becht has, a history in the NFL with his dad, and he could be a really exciting player if you're looking for someone that has that history. Another guy that fits in that category, Max Johnson out of North Carolina. We'll see if he's healthy this year, but another guy to keep an eye on. John Mateer at Oklahoma. We'll see if that experiment works. He's joining his offensive coordinator. He's playing in the SEC, a much more difficult conference to play in, so we'll see if he can handle that. The Big 12 has some intriguing players. Sawyer Robinson has a very intriguing skill set. Maybe he rises up the list of quarterbacks as well. Baron Morton, if he has a good year, Texas Tech appears to be all in for a college football playoff run. He will be a big reason why. Taylor Green, I think Taylor Green's ceiling is pretty high on this list. It's just a matter of he can be consistent enough to get to that point. We'll see if he can, but this is a guy to definitely pay attention to if you are a fan of a team that needs a quarterback next year. Next, we'll dive into the running back position. Lots of intriguing running backs, though this class may not be as deep as the 2025 class. Jeremiah Love is a freak athlete that could grab the headlines there, a guy who definitely has the ability to play in the NFL potentially right now, but we'll see what he can do in 2025 to make himself a really intriguing prospect. There's still some really good names, though. Darius Taylor, super underrated in my opinion. The Gophers don't get a ton of love in the college football ranks, but Darius Taylor is a very good running back, very productive. He's explosive, an extreme competitor, and you can see that on his runs. He is someone who's not afraid of contact. He has good balance through contact as well. Pass production maybe is a little bit of a concern right now, but definitely things he can work on. The Penn State running back duo, that's going to be another group to pay attention to. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, those are two guys that are definitely capable of playing the NFL. Good size for both of them, good legs in terms of power and the ability to run through tackles. Same with LJ Martin out of BYU, CJ Donaldson. So you have a lot of bigger backs in this group, and that's really exciting if you're a team that needs a running back still after this year. Underrated guys, Jonah Coleman out of Washington, Jamal Haynes, Georgia Tech, a smaller guy in Jaheim White from West Virginia. CJ Baxter, if he's back healthy and can get to 100%, he's really dangerous for Texas, then another sleeper, Desmond Reed, is a guy to pay attention to as well. The wide receiver position is interesting because there's a ton of guys you could consider. And honestly, this list was tough to put together. And while I don't have every single player that we need to pay attention to, this list is going to, I think, change the most of maybe any of these positions here. Eric Singleton's really interesting. Transfers to Auburn from Georgia Tech. Jordan Tyson was one of the most explosive wide receivers in college football in 2024 for Arizona State, a big reason why they made it to the college football playoff. Georgia has a couple of guys to pay attention to. They also have a tight end that we'll talk about in a little bit. Zachariah Branch is going to be really fun to watch for them. Noah Thomas is another guy that could be extremely dangerous for the Bulldogs as well. Evan Stewart is someone who probably could have gone pro this year, but decided to go back to Oregon, potentially win a national championship. We'll see how he gels with Dante Moore, but he is someone to keep an eye on. Kevin Concepcion goes from NC State to Texas A&M. That's a guy that people really like. The guy who has probably the most intriguing skill set in terms of highest ceiling could be Nick Harbor out of South Carolina, the guy who has track speed at his size. The combination is going to be lethal if he finds the right system. And then some smaller guys that definitely have big-time ability, Mekhi Lemon, Antonio Williams, Trey Wilson. Those are three guys that if you're looking for maybe a slot player that could dominate, those are three players that definitely could fit that description. I think that they're going to be really fun to watch if they have the right quarterback position figured out. Antonio Williams feels like he's in a good spot with Cade Klubnik. Mekhi Lemon, we'll see who is going to be the quarterback if Jane Maeva is that guy. And then Trey Wilson, everyone's expecting DJ Lagway to take that step, so we'll see how much he benefits from that. The tight end position, we mentioned it just here a little bit. Oscar Delp is probably the one that everybody's paying attention to. The Georgia standout is looking to improve upon his production from 2024, and this is a guy who definitely has the athleticism, the versatility to be dangerous at the NFL. Then you look at I think it's kind of a little bit of a drop off, though you have some intriguing players, guys like Tanner Koziel, Benjamin Brahmer, Eli Stowers, RJ Maryland, not necessarily the most dominant tight ends, but definitely have skill sets that make you intrigued about what they could do. Boise State's Matt Lauder is a guy who could be an under-the-radar type player, very physical player, good hands. We've seen what he could do for Boise State when they get him the football. Justin Jolly's kind of an underrated player as well, has a very good skill set that could fit well in the NFL, and you have other players that are kind of under the radar in terms of you probably don't really know their names. River Helms is one of those guys. So we'll see if this is a group that can step up in a big way and find some more depth. But right now it feels like Oscar Delp is definitely at the top. We'll see who else can fill in to compete for that top spot. Offensive line I just put all together just because so many guys are going to switch positions. They might move based on what their team needs, but there are plenty of intriguing players at every single position. Francis Mauigoa and Spencer Fano are two guys that are going to be at the top. Mauigoa has been a starter since he stepped on campus for Miami. Spencer Fano is an absolute beast for Utah. Very intriguing players to watch. Ernest Green, another Georgia offensive lineman that could be right in the mix to continue that tradition for Georgia in the NFL. Emil Wagner, the Notre Dame offensive line, is going to be phenomenal this year. So we'll see how many picks they can create after this season. DJ Campbell could have probably gone pro this year, but decided not to. And then a number of guys that are finding new homes. Isaiah World, Caden Green, Caden Green is returning to Missouri. Elijah Pritchett transferring to Nebraska. Micah Pettis is going to Florida State from Ole Miss. And two other former transfers in Fernando Carmona and Dylan Wade. Those are guys who are definitely intriguing. If you're looking for offensive line, you feel like you have a pretty good group of guys that could contribute at the next level, and they have plenty to prove. And there's also guys behind them that are looking to move up the ranks. Defensive ends are really exciting for this class. I think that you have a number of explosive players that are looking to show what they can do. The top two guys, there are really a handful of guys that you could really dive into. Anthony Lucas is a guy who doesn't really get talked about enough. Same with Gabe Jacobs. These are two guys that definitely have the ability to play at the next level. Probably could have gone pro this year. Maybe would be in a day 2, day 3 type evaluation. But these are two guys that are definitely looking to move up their draft stock. And I think they will. Now, there's plenty of competition behind them. TJ Parker is an absolute stud for Clemson. Reuben Bain Jr., I don't know if he's going to play on the edge. If he'll play a D tackle, we'll see. Deni Dennis Sutton gets to be the next man up for Penn State. We'll see if he can fill Abdul Carter's shoes. Patrick Payton goes to LSU from Florida State. He is someone that has really good length, really good size. Mateo Uiagalelei, while his brother did not do as well as we thought he would in college, Mateo has been an absolute force for Oregon. Zion Young, another guy to keep it good size for Missouri. I think that this is going to be a really fun year for the SEC in terms of the type of talent you're going to see on the edge. Keldrick Falk, a guy that probably doesn't get a ton of love either, which is weird to say in the SEC, but he kind of flies under the radar. R. Mason Thomas, another guy that I think could rise up really quickly after this year. I think he's set for a big year. Two underrated players kind of coming from the group of five. Eric O'Neal transferred from James Madison to Rutgers. We'll see what he can do in the Big Ten. And then Jaden Virgin Morgan for Boise State. Very disruptive, very productive player for the Broncos. The defensive tackle position is also really intriguing. I think you have a ton of guys that have good size and underrated athleticism, and it starts at the top. Peter Woods can play all across the line at his size, which is crazy to say. This is a guy who has the ability to be an absolute force on the edge, on the interior. He's probably going to play on the interior at the next level, but he is going to have a huge year for Clemson in 2025. This is a Clemson team that is looking to win a national championship. They feel like they have the personnel back. We talked about Cade Klubnik. You have guys like Antonio Williams. That wide receiver group's really good. The defensive line is going to be just as good as we've seen in years past. Peter Woods is a big reason why. Caleb Banks could have gone pro this year. He ultimately decided to come back to Florida. Really intrigued to see what the Gators can do in 2025. He is a big reason why. A name that you probably don't know right now, Zane Durant. Zane Durant probably flies under the radar. Incredible power in his frame. A lot of people obviously were focusing on Abdul Carter, but Zane Durant is someone who definitely has the ability to take over a game. Two guys that, if they can stay healthy, could be really, really good and could be potential first-round picks. Lee Hunter, the former UCF transfer, goes to Texas Tech, and Dante Corleone. Now, Corleone has maybe some health concerns, but this is a guy when they're playing, I should say both of them, when they're playing at their peak, they are really, really good. Anthony Smith, underrated player. Jacobian Guillory could have gone pro, decides to go back to LSU. Dominic Williams, the former TCU transfer, if he can figure things out at Oklahoma, another guy to keep an eye on. And honestly, we talked about Clemson and their ability to produce defensive linemen. DeMonte Capehart is probably going to be in the shadow of Peter Woods and some of those guys like TJ Parker all year, but he is another player that if you don't get Peter Woods, settling, if you will, for DeMonte Capehart is not a bad option. The linebacker position is so interesting because in the NFL you have so many, and even in college football, you have so many different linebacker positions. You have a rush linebacker, inside linebacker, outside linebacker. You have so many different roles that the linebacker position can fill now. And this group is no exception. Guys like Anthony Hill and Lander Barton are going to do a lot of things for their team. Texas is looking to get to the national championship game. Anthony Hill will be a big reason why. 113 tackles, 17 tackles for loss in 2024. This is a guy who has good closing speed, good acceleration, a very fluid mover. We'll see if he can improve upon certain aspects of his game, but this is a Texas defense that has big expectations in 2025. Utah and Lander Barton are looking to bounce back in a big way. I think that was a very disappointing season in 2024 for the Utes, and they are looking to reverse that trend and get back on the winning side of things. Jacob Manu comes to Washington from Arizona, and he will be really fun to watch. Back reunited with Jed Fish, had a decent year at Arizona, and we'll see if he can compete in the Big Ten. Deontay Lawson, another Alabama linebacker. I did a short on him. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you do that. Other guys that kind of fly under the radar. This is a group that has a good amount of underrated players. Cade Uolave, Keaton Thomas, Keyshawn Elliott. Those are guys that a lot of people probably don't know right now, but could by the end of the year. Harold Perkins. Where is Harold Perkins going to play? That's a big question for him. Can he be a linebacker? Can he be that stand-up linebacker, off the ball linebacker? We'll see. Didn't play most of last year, so we'll see if he can stay healthy and also what he can do as a linebacker. We saw what he could do on the edge as a freshman. We'll see if he can improve at his new position as well. Whit Weeks, his teammate, is another guy who maybe doesn't have that ceiling of Harold Perkins, but definitely someone who has the ability to be an impact player. Then we go to the secondary. We'll start with the corners, and the guy I highlighted that I think is going to fly under the radar, probably just because of his size at 5'10", 180 pounds, is Chandler Rivers. Chandler Rivers plays for Duke. He's an absolute dog for the Blue Devils. This is a guy who has the ability to make plays. He's done it at multiple different positions. He plays corner. He can play safety. He can play nickelback. We'll see what he plays at the next level, but this is a guy who has the ability to be really good for an NFL team, give them that versatility. It's just going to come down to the right fit. Other guys that maybe are higher on this list, Avion Terrell, AJ Harris, Jermon McCoy, Takario Davis. Right now, to me, those are the top 4 guys in terms of what the NFL is looking for in terms of size and production. Guys like DJ McKinney, D'Angelo Pons are kind of flying under the radar. Manzur Delaney is going to be really fun to watch for LSU. We'll see if he can handle life in the SEC coming from Virginia Tech. Will Lee had a pretty good year. Probably could have gone pro, but wants to improve his stock. A guy who knows what he's doing. Actually, 2 guys that know what they're doing with the ball in the air. Jalen Kilgore for South Carolina and Josh Moten, for Southern Miss, comes from Marshall. Those guys know what to do when the ball is in the air. Absolute ball hawks. But again, we'll see how much they can improve their stock with their schools. And finally, the safety position. The safety position is really intriguing. I think everybody's looking at Caleb Downs, and then who else is going to be in the running for that type of player. Caleb Downs feels like he's the best, and then maybe there's a little bit of fall off. Dylan Thieneman for Oregon. He's a pretty solid player. I think he has the ability to be a potential first-round pick. Xavier Nwankpa, if he can improve at Iowa, he's another guy. AJ Halsey, we'll see where he ends up in the transfer portal. As of right now, he is not committed anywhere. The former Houston transfer is going to be really intriguing to watch. A guy like Michael Taff is also someone to watch in terms of a good story. He's a former walk-on turned all-conference player. He is definitely has the ability to, I don't know if he's going to make it in the first round, but he is definitely going to be in the NFL at some point, and it'll be fun to see what he can do again for that Texas defense. We talked about what they're looking to do in 2025. A national championship is definitely on their mind, and their defense has plenty of talent to make that happen.